Each of us wants to be the hero of our own story. We await a call to adventure, a new job, a move, a significant project. But what if the greatest adventure doesn't happen in the external world? What if the main dragon to be conquered isn't a difficult boss or an economic crisis, but the invisible forces within our own psyche? This is the story of how the mechanisms designed to protect us become our jailers. They are like an outdated antivirus program. Once, it protected the system from real threats, but now it blocks useful updates, mistaking them for viruses. In the same way, our defenses sabotage our journey before it even begins. Humanity has a universal map for such journeys. Joseph Campbell, after studying myths from around the world, from the tales of the Navajo to ancient Indian epics, called it the monomyth, or the hero's journey, in his 1949 book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. From the Sumerian king Gilgamesh, who sought immortality around 2500 BC, to Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games, all great stories follow the same pattern. The hero leaves the ordinary world, passes through a series of trials, and returns with a reward. This structure isn't just a formula for blockbusters, it's the DNA of human transformation. But if we have the map, why do we so often lose our way? The answer lies in another map, drawn by Sigmund Freud and detailed by his daughter Anna in 1936. This is the map of our internal guardians of the threshold, our psychological defenses: repression, denial, projection. Their job is to protect our ego, that perpetually anxious inner manager, from pain and anxiety. They act like a press secretary who tries to maintain the company's reputation at all costs, preserving our status quo even if it means distorting the facts. They are the ones who whisper in our ear, "Don't go there, it's dangerous. Stay here, in your comfort zone." Today, this call to adventure rarely sounds like an archangel's trumpet. More often, it manifests as a system error in our daily matrix. A sudden thought of, what if? A job posting seen by chance in another city, or even a painful layoff that forcibly pushes us out of our familiar world. It's any impulse that threatens to disrupt the safe, yet often suffocating order of things. It is the voice of our potential, asking us to step beyond the known. Almost instantly, a counter-reaction is triggered. This is the first stage of the hero's journey, which Campbell called the refusal of the call. Our mind, like an immune system, perceives a new, potentially life-changing idea as a foreign virus. It immediately generates dozens of reasons why it won't work. I don't have time. I'm not good enough. What if I fail? This internal dialogue is not just doubt, it is the active work of those very defense mechanisms. One of the most skillful guardians at this threshold is rationalization, the art of deceiving ourselves with clever arguments. It's the classic Aesop's fable of the fox and the grapes. Unable to reach the bunch, the fox walks away, convincing himself they were sour anyway. Similarly, we don't just fear public speaking, we tell ourselves. The audience won't understand this complex topic. We don't procrastinate on writing a book, we convince ourselves we need to do just one more piece of research. Rationalization masks fear in the guise of wisdom, turning retreat into a noble and considered act. And if words don't work, actions, or a lack thereof, come into play. This is avoidance. Endlessly scrolling through social media feeds, a sudden urge to perfectly organize a closet, binge-watching another series. Anything to avoid taking that crucial step. Our brain even plays along with this self-deception, rewarding us with a hit of dopamine for completing small, safe tasks, creating the illusion of productivity. This is the physical embodiment of refusal. The body and mind conspire to keep us in the familiar world where everything is predictable, even our own unhappiness. But if we manage to overcome this initial sabotage, we approach the point of no return. Campbell called it crossing the threshold. In myths, this place is always guarded by a sentinel, like Cerberus at the gates of Hades, whose task is to keep the living from entering the realm of the dead and the dead from returning. Here we meet more formidable psychological guardians. These are no longer mere excuses, but deep, unconscious forces. They are the real dragons that guard our greatest treasures and our deepest wounds. The first and most powerful of these is denial, the magical ability to not see what is right in front of our eyes. It's no coincidence that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross placed denial first in her model of the 5 stages of grief. It is an instinctive reaction to an unbearable truth. An addict who insists, "I can quit anytime." An employee who ignores the obvious signs of an impending layoff. Denial creates a distorted reality to protect us from pain. To defeat this dragon means mustering the courage to face the facts. The next dragon is more cunning. Projection is a trick where we attribute to others the feelings we don't want to acknowledge in ourselves. Our psyche works like a movie projector. It takes our own unconscious film, perhaps about our envy or insecurity, and projects it onto the screen of another person. We are irritated by a colleague's arrogance because we are struggling with our own pride. We see betrayal in everyone because we fear being disloyal ourselves. This mechanism makes us fight shadows in the external world, while the real enemy is our own unaccepted self. Then there is repression. This is the jailer that locks traumatic memories and forbidden desires in the deepest dungeon of the subconscious. Freud compared this process to trying to hold a large beach ball underwater. It requires constant effort, and the ball is always threatening to pop up in the form of slips of the tongue, dreams, or unexplained anxiety. We may not even know these memories are there, but they control our lives from the shadows. The path to them lies in paying attention to these accidental breakthroughs. But not all dragons are enemies. Sublimation is the only mechanism Freud considered truly mature and constructive. It is a kind of psychological alchemy, turning the lead of our base impulses into the gold of culture. It takes the energy of aggression or forbidden desire and redirects it into creativity or work. A surgeon sublimates cruelty into precise, life-saving incisions. An artist like Frida Kahlo transforms her physical pain into great art. The hero's goal is not to kill all the dragons, but to learn to harness their power. Finally, there is a special trap for the intelligent: intellectualization. This is an escape from feelings into an ivory tower of abstract reasoning. It's like studying a restaurant menu with a microscope, analyzing the composition of dishes and the history of the recipe to avoid ever tasting the food itself. Instead of experiencing grief, we read books about the stages of mourning. Instead of feeling anger, we discuss its biochemical nature. A hero caught in this trap studies the map instead of walking the territory. They know everything about dragons but have never looked one in the eye. This is the descent into the underworld, an encounter with an inner bestiary where each monster is a distorted part of ourselves, waiting to be understood, not just defeated. It is in this underworld, after battling the monsters, that the hero often meets the goddess. She offers unconditional love and acceptance. In psychological terms, this is a moment of deep self-compassion, what Carl Jung called the integration of the shadow. It's like signing a peace treaty after a long internal civil war. When we accept both our light and our shadow, we no longer need to project our dark sides onto others. We stop dividing the world into good and bad people because we recognize that all these qualities exist within us. This is the beginning of healing. The next stage, Campbell called atonement with the Father. This is a symbolic confrontation with the ultimate authority figure, with law and structure. Psychologically, it is an encounter with our superego. It's like auditing the internal code of laws we received in childhood from our parents and society. We suddenly realize we are living by rules written decades ago, many of which are hopelessly outdated. This is the moment we consciously question deep-seated beliefs like, "I must be perfect," or "anger is bad," and stop being hostages to childish perceptions of the world. This is followed by apotheosis, the moment the hero symbolically dies and is reborn. This is not a physical death, but the death of an egocentric worldview. It's like a video game player realizing they are not the avatar on the screen, but the one holding the controller. We cease to fully identify with our thoughts and emotions. It's a profound understanding that our defense mechanisms are merely outdated survival strategies from childhood. I am not my anxiety. I am not my fear of failure. This is liberation from the tyranny of our own ego. Luke Skywalker's journey is a perfect illustration, as George Lucas was a student of Campbell and consciously built the saga on the monomyth. His refusal of the call, "I can't, I'm needed by my Uncle Owen." His descent into the underworld is the cave on Dagobah, where he sees his own face under Vader's mask. The atonement with the Father is literally the battle with Vader, during which Luke accepts that darkness exists within him and refuses to kill. His reward is not victory over the Empire, but becoming a Jedi who has mastered his inner force rather than suppressed it. Any startup is a hero's journey in miniature. The call is the business idea. The refusal is the fear of failure. Crossing the threshold is quitting a stable job. The path of trials is what Silicon Valley calls the Valley of Death, a period of cash flow gaps and crises. Think of Steve Jobs. His exile from Apple was his descent into hell, and his triumphant return was his resurrection. Every crisis is a test that exposes the founder's defenses, denial of problems, projection of blame onto employees. The reward is not just money, but the personal growth forged in the fire of these trials. How do you begin your own journey? The simplest tool is a journal. Think of it as your consciousness's black box, impartially recording all internal negotiations. Not to document events, but to track your defenses. Ask yourself questions. What call am I avoiding today? What rational reasons have I invented? Who am I angry at? And what qualities of mine might I be projecting onto that person? This turns abstract theory into a daily practice of self-observation, as if a scientist were studying an unknown species themselves. But it's important to remember the goal of this knowledge is not to diagnose yourself or get stuck in endless self-analysis, which is itself a trap of intellectualization. As the philosopher Alfred Korzybski said, the map is not the territory. Psychological analysis is the map, real life is the territory. The map is useful only when it helps us move. Once you see your defense, the next step isn't to analyze it further, but to do the very thing it's preventing you from doing. Make that call. Start that project. Say those words. At the end of this path, the hero doesn't find a chest of gold or eternal happiness. The reward, or as Campbell called it, the elixir, is something far more valuable: psychological flexibility. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of concentration camps, articulated it this way: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Before this journey, we were automatons. Someone criticizes us, and we instantly attack back. Now a choice appears in that space. It's like a computer screen where programs used to launch automatically, but now a confirmation window pops up. Are you sure you want to run an anger attack? In this micropause lies all our power. This doesn't mean the rain of unpleasant emotions stops falling. But before we stood under it without an umbrella, now we watch it from the window of a cozy house. We can notice, that's my defense kicking in. My ego feels threatened. And in that moment of observation, the opportunity arises not to succumb to the old script. The hero doesn't always kill the dragon, often they tame it. Our defenses are like a vicious guard dog that barks furiously at everyone. Instead of getting rid of it, a wise owner asks, what is it guarding that is so valuable? By understanding that procrastination protects us from the fear of imperfection, we can negotiate with it instead of fighting it. We can give ourselves permission to make mistakes and simply begin. The outcome of this process is what Carl Jung called individuation. It is the reunification of a country long torn by a civil war. The person no longer divides themselves into good and bad parts. They acknowledge their shadow, their aggression, their fears, finding a place and a constructive use for them. Their ego transforms from a frightened dictator into a wise advisor. This is true self-actualization, not becoming someone else, but finally becoming fully and completely oneself. So the hero's journey is not just a beautiful story, but a time-tested map for transformation. And Freud's theory is not a dry academic text, but a practical guide to identifying our inner adversaries. By combining them, we get the most complete navigation kit. Myth is the GPS that shows the route and the final destination. Psychology is the technical manual for our vehicle, explaining why the engine stalls halfway. One gives us inspiration and direction, the other gives us specific names for our demons. This ancient map of myth produces a powerful psychological shift. It reformats our perception. It transforms what felt like a chaotic and shameful internal struggle into a meaningful adventure with understandable stages. It offers hope by showing that millions before us have walked this path and survived. It presents our difficulties not as a pathology or a personal defect, but as an integral part of a heroic quest. The hero returns to the ordinary world, but they are changed. They become, as Campbell said, a master of two worlds, the material and the psychological. Outwardly, this may not be noticeable. It's not about superpowers, but rather psychological night vision goggles that allow one to see the hidden currents in everyday situations. It's the ability to endure discomfort without panicking. It's the skill to engage in difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. It is the quiet confidence of a person who has met their dragons and survived. This journey is not a one-time event, but a spiral. After completing one cycle, we will sooner or later hear a new call. Look at your life right now. What impulse for growth are you ignoring? What adventure are you postponing? And what familiar guardian is standing at your threshold? In ancient myths and fairy tales, like the story of Rumpelstiltskin, knowing a demon's true name gave you power over it. The journey always begins with a single step, naming your guardian.